My name is Deji Elumoye, Chairman and General of Journalists, Lagos State Council.
My name is Lanre Arogundade. I'm the Director of International Press Center in Lagos, Nigeria.
Okay, what's the attitude of NUJ to policies of certain media organizations in Nigeria concerning certain critical national issues and restricting their reporters or journalists from covering them? What is the attitude of NUJ to this?
Yeah, NUJ take exception to some of these developments. We made it point blank that employers of labor cannot unnecessarily gag our members, stop them from carrying their normal duties, and whatever they are doing, especially journalists in all these media houses we are talking about, they are guided by the ethics of the profession. And recently we discovered some developments, and we discovered that these developments are really uncalled for, and a situation whereby a media owner wants to censor what goes out of the media establishment, especially when the journalists that are involved, senior editorial staff, they have complied with the outside and guided by the ethics of the profession. We believe this is really uncalled for. We've asked us to even tell some of these media owners that what they are doing is to the detriment and not in the best interest of the Nigerian public.
And in terms of press freedom, it's a big dilemma for the average journalist, because now you are looking at what you could call internal, dictatorship or internal, repression, as it were, and then external ones as well. Because there are occasions when governments would feel, oh, this news item, it's false, it's wrong, whatever their perception is, and then they take what you could call, draconian action, like it happened to Channels Television the other time, and of course, recently, to leadership, journalists.
In Nigeria and in the entire Africa, for example, AIT is believed to be an independent, as it is part of its name, independent television station. Why do you think AIT, particularly being an independent station, would do that to one of its journalists?
Independent, maybe where they started, but now to some of us, AIT is no longer independent in its reportage. We've discovered that some of the things they do and some of the reports they carry is they are more or less tilted towards one faction, so to say. And so if you are talking about independence, it's subjective. And so if they have taken that decision, or they're taking some steps about practicing journalism in their establishment, it doesn't really come as a surprise to the leadership of the union, because we know the owners of AIT, he's a businessman. He's a businessman, and don't forget that politics is around the corner. So they are trying to curry favor of those in government. I think that was accounted for what really transpired. Before now, you can, like I said, independence on court, but now some of us are beginning to have another thought about that word independent. So we are not surprised. We are not really surprised, but we won't take some of these things that we won't allow it to go like that.
What transpired, at AIT, or what was alleged to have transpired, by the way, this particular news item was said to be during their news bulletin. The editors concerned, having carried views of those who favored the judgment, or rather those who supported the judgment in favor of Al-Mustafa, felt that, okay, let's have somebody who is against and then who would like to condemn. And I think it was in that context that Richard Akinola was brought on here, and then of course the program led to controversy. So in that kind of situation, this is what we are saying that shouldn't be. Because as long as the journalists are following the basic principles of good journalism, which is that they are trying to give different sides to that issue, to that dispute. Again, when you are bringing somebody on here, if I should invite you, for example, and say, what is your view on this judgment? As a journalist, I'm not supposed to know what you were going to say.
In Nigeria's case study, you would see that most of those media organizations are either operated or financed by politicians. They are owned by politicians, let's put it that way. So do you see this as threats to free press?
Yeah, well, if a media organization is owned by a politician or somebody who has sympathy for a particular political party, there is no way the operations of that corporation or establishment will not be treated towards one way. Because if I'm a media owner and I belong to party A, I would want that establishment to write or say or broadcast anything bad about my party.
Well, when politicians own media, it is so clear that it's meant to propagate, certain views which they hold or ideologies, which of course mostly they don't have in Nigeria of today. Now, our own attitude is that people have the right, to own the media. In fact, it's a constitutional right. You won't say because somebody holds this particular political view, then he shouldn't have a news medium. But the point that we keep stressing is the fact that we must fight for the independence of the editorial section, of the media. And the model that comes to mind here is the American model. In America, when you talk of editorial opinion, that is the editorial opinion of the publisher as the editorial. But when it comes to news, that is the responsibility of the professionals. How we can take this away from the political ownership, I think is the challenge, that we are facing. And on occasions where our colleagues have tried to be professional and the owners who are politicians have thought otherwise, that's caused embarrassment. Because one of the things we do at the International Press Center is we do monitoring of the media. We monitor how newspapers, sometimes radio and TV, cover specific issues of development. And what we have discovered is that ownership has been a big factor in what we report, especially when it comes to governance and political, reporting. You could always predict that this would be the headline of this newspaper over this particular, judgment, the following day, depending on the personalities that are involved. The
Freedom of Information Act is one of the things that Nigerian media has been basking about recently. But do you think it is optimally being utilized by the Nigerian media enterprise?
The FOI Act has signed into law by the president over 2 years ago. As I speak, has not been optimally utilized by journalists. Why? You described that from our findings, we described that foreign journalists find it difficult, very difficult to assess that act. And you could recall it that an average journalist is somebody who writes history more or less in a hurry. And when you look at the provisions of the FOI Act, you see that there are procedures. It's more or less like civil service stuff. You write to somebody, it takes 7 days from one desk to another. And if your editor or your media boss believes you should send a report maybe in 2-3 days, and for more than 7-14 days, even 3 weeks, the people who are supposed to give information keeps on passing the buck. That is good for this day to another day. And that is why you describe that most people, even if they are investigating, they describe that they have to just discard the use of that FOI Act because of the provisions. And that is why we are saying some of the provisions are called for and they need to be repealed or amended.
If you look at the FOI, there are two sides to it. There is the supply side, in terms of the enormous obligations that the FOI Act puts on public institutions to proactively disclose information about what they do. The law is so basic, it's so simple. It says that each public institution must publicly provide information on what they do, who their staffers are, who their managers are, what salaries they earn, what their responsibilities are. The law says display all this in a very conspicuous place. So we expect that by now all government institutions through their websites and so on would have provided various informations about the organizations. So that is what the law says. So it's not about asking all the time. It's about you coming out to say that this is what we are, this is what we do. So that is on the supply side. And on that supply side, it has a lot of implications for the demand side, where we are now looking at the public that is requesting for information. In the sense that on the supply side, you need to have institutional processes and mechanisms through which information could be sought. In the Ministry of Environment in Lagos State, for example, or the Federal Ministry of Health, who do I go to if I want to make an FOI request? But I wouldn't say that the usage has been that bad. The few applications that I've made have been quite encouraging because they touch on accountability issues. Civil society groups have requested for information. For example, reading the papers today, one of the civil society organizations, SaharaTV, is going to court to say that government has not provided information on how certain monies that accrue to government, has been disbursed. So, although the usage has not been as we expected, but the few applications that have been made touch on transparency, touch on accountability, and I think that what we just need to do is to, encourage Nigerians to make use of the law, the media especially.
Journalists are not journalists. Not only journalists, mind you, the FOI Act is for all Nigerians. I remember the civil society, a lot of them are in court over the issue because they described that they could not access information through the act.
What's your reaction personally to the brown envelope journalism syndrome in Nigeria? People going about collecting brown envelope to do certain reports or to favor certain parties who are involved in particular stories.
Yeah, the issue of brown envelope, if you don't give, another person will not take. What we keep saying is the public should be able to assist the profession, they should be able to assist the NUJ, they should be able to assist the media generally by not giving. If you invite somebody to cover an assignment, the person comes there, he does his reports, and he leaves. We've always been telling our members that don't ever request, don't ever ask for any gratification because it's against the ethics and code of ethics of the profession. But when somebody is saying, oh, can I see you after the assignment, this and that, I want you to use this, they do it at times. I'll be telling them that if we have any instance like that is reported to us, we take it up and even invite those people to before our AITs and display. So we don't want it, we have never encouraged it. Issue of brand envelope is not the best. And our own concern is, if you believe our members should put in all their best in whatever they are doing, media owners who are employers, they should from time to time pay living wage to our members, pay salaries as our when due, so that people will not be tempted. They will not be tempted when they go out on assignment or when they want to go investigate the report and say, okay, maybe yes, my employer has not paid for 1 or 2 months, and maybe you will be tempted. We don't want that one, and that's why we're telling them, please pay as I when due. We have instances of some media houses who claims to be global, who even claim to be international and whatever, that are owning our members, and we've been engaging them in discussion. That why are you owning our members? Our member work time 24/7. There's no weekend. That you don't see journalists going to work in their various media houses, and when they work 24/7, at the end of the month, 30th or 31st, your own obligation to pay after you have done his own obligation, you are found wanting. Why is it like that? Why won't you pay from time to time when you know you cannot maintain or sustain your media house? Why don't you close shop? So that is another problem.
In fact, what you have now is much more than brand envelope. It's wrong. Again, journalists will tell you, well, it's because we're not well paid, we are not paid at all, and so on and so forth. And as much as possible, we try to stress that should not, be an excuse. Like I said, these days, if you work hard, you could have other opportunities of working and getting paid, for the work that you do. Secondly, the NUJ needs to step up its role as a union to fight for collective bargaining to ensure that the welfare of journalists are defended. And recently, where the NUJ has actually come forward, I'm talking of the Nigeria Union of Journalists, where they have stepped forward to threaten to shut down some media organizations, the response has been very, very positive. They started paying salaries of their journalists and so on. So that should not be an excuse. It's not acceptable. But people must also understand too that taking of gratification in any form, either by you being a political consultant to politicians and so on, also has its own risk for you as a journalist. It endangers the life of the journalist.
We take exception to the collection of brand envelope by a member, and that is why I said any report brought before us, we take it very seriously and refer them to the committee for necessary disciplinary action. But our employers too, we help by ensuring that they pay. Those who are not paying, should wake up and they are left to their responsibilities.